So Skye, will hand it over to you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Is it working? Can you see? You can see me. I can't see me.
We can see you. And
Okay.
I'm sharing the slides, so we should be good.
Okay. So hello, everyone. I thought that this meeting was at 6 because of the time difference. It's at 7, whatever it is, North Central time. And whatever, volunteers, like I said, we're all retarded, and we thought it was at 6 my time. And it was 80 degrees here and a really nice day, a really nice Saturday. And whatever, if you all would like to join me in a beer at this point, go right ahead. Are you guys there?
We're all here. We can hear you.
Okay. I think I had it on mute or something. So I'm going to count on you for a lot of questions. And I think we have a slideshow ready. I tried to get it going on my computer. I'm ending up on my phone, guys. So I apologize for that. But yeah, what do we got first? We're going to, I guess, a little rundown quick, or a lot of bull selection comes down to conformation first and foremost when you're breeding purebred animals in particular. Conformation is the way they're built, their physical structure, tying into their longevity, basically, and their productiveness throughout their lifetime. You want a cow at the end of the day, and a bull, the same deal. But bulls make cows, right, as we know. So you want genetics that are going to be long-lived and very productive throughout their lifetime. You want a cow that's going to travel, feed herself well, maintain condition on pasture, be able to move throughout her environment, lay down, have a calf, be fat, be happy without any, anything else, green grass and sunshine. So that's the goal when we're selecting cattle, period. We'll touch briefly on EPDs, or expected progeny differences, their the numerical values, birth weight, wean weight, yearling weight, that sort of thing that you want to be looking at also when selecting a bull. But
the Highland breed.
What's that?
Oh.
Was that a boo-boo, anybody?
That was a boo-boo.
Okay. So I guess I sent these pictures to our technical guru, and I think we're just getting introduced here with some good examples of Highland bulls. Turn the sound on, everybody, or anybody that would like to. If you want to periodically interject, ask questions, there's no such thing as interrupting. Please do that. It'll help spur the conversation along. I can see in that top screen, there's a mix of several bulls, different age ranges, environments. 3 of them are from Michigan, when they were pictured, they were in Michigan. And another one from out west, I don't really know shit about. I had the picture saved on my phone and thought that's a good one I'll throw in there. I believe he's from the high mountains, Colorado. I don't know if anybody else got a chance to view the Facebook post. I was trying to get people to put in on their young bulls of different kinds. I thought young bulls in particular were just a good group, something you could compare to. A lot of people I know, if a lot of you are newer, are probably buying young bulls. It's a kind of a Highland thing to do, for better or worse. If you're looking for bulls, really, I try to steer people toward a more proven route. The young ones are just a little less intimidating to a lot of people, but really kind of more of a foolish choice unless they're real good looking. Because you'd rather have a proven one any day, and proven is a a term I see thrown around a lot on Facebook too, you know, just because he's sired live calves does not, you know, make a bull proven in my mind, right? It's got to be good calves, you know. Any bull can sire a calf. It's, you know, whether they're good or not is what counts. So this is how the talk's going to go, folks. I can next slide. We'll get down to judging a few too. There'll be some groups here where, you know, I'll ask you to pick after the end of the, or I don't know when, at some point during this discussion, you can, you know, pick and choose. I want to hear a 1, 2, 3, 4 and why a little. But again, this is a mixed group of bulls. On the left, we have 2 from the UK. That top left one is about, I don't know, probably 30 years dead. His name is Philip of Strathal, and he was an import bull that was pretty cool, pretty romantic looking. Little short and squat probably, but and well fed, but super attractive nonetheless. Bottom left is has probably been the sire in the UK for about the last 10 years. He's got a real goofy name, but he's owned by Ken Brown of Craig O'Mill. And side note, have some exciting genetics coming in off of him, and well, probably not till next year. And then a couple of dun bulls I home raise on the right. Just looking to kind of, if you can take a good look at those pictures, see a pattern to them. You can see a general straightness and lines. You know, you see a good flat top line. They're strong, they're masculine. Those legs, you probably heard it described as you know, like a bale of hay with a post at each corner for those legs. You know, it doesn't look like a hard wind is going to blow them over by any means, right? They look like a bull. We're raising beef animals. So that's important. You know, never forget that beef forefront from the front of your mind, kind of. It's the only thing that separates beef cattle from llamas, emus, or any other novelty animal. You know, we don't have a dog pound for these things. There's no rescue. It's what keeps the prices up like they had ought to be. People aren't giving them away because at the end of the day, they're worth beef, you know, and there's producers that are depending on you to create animals that can thrive, you know, on grass and be able to raise beef. They're selling it out of their freezer. They want to, you know, something that will perform to an expected degree. So it is really important to have that focus, as much as we like the horns and the hair and the cuteness aspects. Again, you know, pointing out some of you newbies, maybe that's what attracts all of us. But super important to get into that beef side of things. They can be cute and be functional. And you know, that's when you've got something decent, I guess. I'm just going to keep going. Next slide. So these were cool. I wish, is Paula Walker on?
Let me take
Paula?
a look. I don't see her, no.
Okay. She's kind of got a Facebook presence these days, and I thought she might be. She put on a couple photos of her bulls. That black one up there on the left, you'll see further in the demonstration, there's a little group of blacks that I'm going to ask you to judge. And she submitted 3 photos. I used 2 of them in the judging demonstration. But this one right here is probably the best of the 3 that she submitted. I thought it might get overlooked because he was a little bit younger than the other 3. And he has his head down like that. So it's not super showy or anything. But from a profile, I can absolutely appreciate him. I wish I wasn't on my phone and I could blow this up a little bit to be able to talk a ton about him. But I can see he's got a pretty clean front end. He's got those square legs we've been talking about, that flat top. So I could appreciate that one. I like him a lot.
When you say
Bottom
clean,
left,
Skyler?
yeah,
Clean
front. Like he doesn't have too much leather. You know, he's not too baggy.
In the brisket area?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
that lower neck. And I wish, again, we tried to set up my computer, or I was told like Zoom, you could, you know, show the people just exactly what you're looking at. And we're just not to that point technologically over here yet, apparently. But yeah, a decent one nonetheless. That bottom left, yearling bulls are kind of a toughie, and that one's spot on a yearling. I think he's pretty close to 12 months there. And if they're gonna, a young bull in particular, if they're gonna look crappy, that's gonna be when it is coming through their first winter and they're growing a lot. And that one just struck me as a real honest, good one. He hasn't been, I don't think, messed with too much as far as fed a lot or groomed a ton. But he just looks real good. Again, that top line, that leg, that rib, see how it's kind of got that roundness to it. It looks like he swallowed a keg of beer. Super nice. The one on the top, go ahead, Jan.
His front end is not as clean or as narrow as that younger one up in the top left, right?
Correct. But acceptable nonetheless. Yeah. There's, you know, you'll run into different types and kinds of bulls. Some of them are going to be a lot more like Sporty Spice, like that black one up there, or the red one opposite of him. They have that long extended neck, or I kind of compare it to, you know, the difference between a lion and a cheetah, or both of them are, you know, beautiful animals in their own right and have different things to offer, kind of
right.
Speed versus power, style versus power. And the best, of course, is, you know, to try to get the best of both worlds as far as that goes. But you can definitely make some exceptions for either type, you know, as long as they're correct, as long as they're good. There's not really such a thing as a winner. There's just good ones, you know. And that top right one, he was just a young bull calf. I don't know where that photo came from, Facebook, just recently. That was more that lion type. He had some dimensions. People have obviously brushed on him just a little bit. But he looked good. He had something to offer. So I thought I'd throw that in there. Are we at the point where we can ask any questions at all? I can go for miles, but anybody. It would be in sincere help.
Skyler, this is Mark Schultz. You said that the last one you commented on, you said he had something to offer. What do you think he has to offer?
Substance. Yeah. He's got rib. He's got a hind quarter to him. He's got some bone. You know, you look at those legs and just the entire animal. He's not frail. He's not, you know, fine featured. He's rugged and got some capacity. He's three-dimensional. You could probably look at that one from all angles and you could see, you know, the muscle popping a little bit, that rib springing. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yep. Thanks. I guess when you talk about spring or rib, where exactly are you looking? And, you know, you talk the swallowing the keg of beer was a good example, but just for other people, where are you looking, like from where to where on the animal? Yeah,
like that. Or there's maybe a little confusion between spring of rib and depth of rib. Spring of rib refers to the dimension, you know, like that keg of beer. Where depth of rib is just strictly from a side profile, you know, from the top of their back to the bottom of their belly is deep. You know, there's you know, it's 3 feet versus 2 feet, you know, and the spring has to do with the roundness. Yeah.
Skyler?
Yeah.
This is Jacqueline.
Hey, Jacqueline.
It might be helpful if people could, especially on the 2 left-hand photographs, the black and the darker yellow red.
Yeah.
If you actually look at this behind the front legs and before the rear legs,
correct,
you can see that is spring of rib. It's not a flat side.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, when they're well sprung, you can even see it from the side if you're looking in dimensions, but it's just like Jacqueline said, it's in between the legs. You know, it's that round barrel shape. to their, to their rib cage. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And that has to do with, fleshing ability. Animals that have that round spring of rib, they're I don't know what, they're proven to be, easier fleshing animals. So easier fleshing animals, they get fat easier. Those steaks are, more tender, a little bit better. Those females that they're going to sire are going to be fatter, easier as well. They're not going to have trouble rebreeding because they're in good condition. They're well balanced and can maintain themselves. They're just kind of that nice chubby type.
Does that also have anything to do with rumen capacity?
Oh, probably. I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, but I'd like to say yes.
So you don't, as they age, you don't usually see young calves with that spring of rib. Am I correct? You're kind of looking for that as they age?
Yeah, I wouldn't see, or I don't know, you probably see that develop, and you might see some differences among peers if you have, a real close group. But I guess when I'm looking at calves, you can see skeletally, like they're built, their lines maybe pretty quick, like at anywhere from a couple of weeks to a month or a little bit more older. You can see that their legs are set right or their hip is good, but you don't start to really see that dimension until they're probably 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Anybody else, or next slide, either one?
Do you have anything to comment on the lower right picture?
He was just a cool one that I had. He was a reserve champion, and I had champion that year. I mean, what kind of comments do you want? Yes, sir, I do. I had champion that year with a bull that was totally opposite style from him. He was definitely more the cheetah type, that red one down there. Extremely long fronted. Just that real sporty spice kind of an individual. Where the one I had was a little bit more dimensional. Had a little bit more rib maybe. But super, super useful. He sired a lot of heifer calves for me that were, built just his same way. And good udders to boot, which is something that might get overlooked on selecting bulls too. We might as well talk about that a minute, I guess. Yeah. A bull is kind of only as good as their mother, I've heard people say, and there's a lot of truth to that. You don't want a bull that's out of a bad uddered mother cow in particular. As breeders, we're continually trying to, make our herd better. So that means retaining females as well as passing on, genetics to other people. And if you have bad udders, it's just, it's horrible. Right now I'm calving. And if you got a monkey around with a bad udder, it ruins your day. I've got mud up to my waist and I got to mess around with a calf trying to get on a big tit or something like that. I don't have time for it. And, you can say as, I only have a couple of cows. Well, if you're planning on selling the offspring out of those couple of cows to anybody else, you do bear some responsibility. So it's important, definitely when you're selecting a bull, keep the parents in mind and all the practical aspects. Birth weight, weaning weights, again, I know I said we'll touch on that, so we'll do that now as well. For a weaning weight on a grass-fed program in a spring calving herd, I'm looking for at least anything 500 and above. So if at 205 days is kind of the standard, and you got a calf out on decent pasture, and his mother, nursing milk, I want something to be at least 500 pounds for me to consider it as a bull calf. or, you know, as a potential herd sire for the coming year. Weaning weights, birth weight, also super important. Saw a post today on a lady that had a calf, and you can tell it was just a monster. Ideally, you know, the best is that they're true to Highland form, you know, that we're having those smaller calves. 60 pounds is pretty ideal. You'll get some into 80 and they'll have no problem at all, but you get into some even that are like 100 pounds, and that's when it gets scary. That's when it gets real un-Highland for me. It'll get you into calving problems. Not ideal. There's nothing good about that. Those big calves, they don't jump up and nurse like they had ought to. They've had, you know, kind of a hard birth. They're big dummies. And it doesn't result in profitable beef, you know, for anybody. Anybody looking to utilize Highland genetics in a commercial sort of a standpoint, you know, small calves and calf survivability is the number one kind of money maker, deal breaker as far as that goes. So, again, super important, just something to check on.
So those larger calves a lot of times will produce larger calves themselves, right?
Highly genetic, yes.
Yeah.
Size in particular, right?
Yeah.
And in some of the show bulls, you know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's also, with calf weight, there's a lot to do with what the owners are doing pre-calving. Are
True.
They feeding grain? Are in the last trimester? That kind of stuff. I think it's important for people to understand what the needs are of a cow during the whole gestation period. Because
you're not wrong there.
I've seen new breeders just put grain to their pregnant cows and don't understand why they have this huge calf and a cow with a problem calving.
True. But I'll tell you what, I see far more not feeding them appropriately either, you know. New breeders expecting them to live on grass because we tout that, or, you know, on pine needles and dirt then sometime as well, and expect them to thrive. So it is a balance. Yeah, you don't want to go too heavy one way or the other, or you will run into problems.
Skyler,
is all I can say on that. I don't know.
Skyler, it's Pat.
Yeah.
People have to also remember that the cow has something to do with that calf size also.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to always blame the
It's
bull.
A 50-50 deal. Correct.
Actually, no, it's even as the cow gets older, her calves tend to get bigger.
Also true. Yeah. People worry about those first calvers, but the first calvers, I mean, in my experience, always have the smallest calves no matter what. So if you're breeding them to something, you know, relatively, not too far in any extreme, you'll be just fine. But that is correct. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm having a good time. Is everybody else? Fuck. Sorry.
I'm having a good time. Keep going, Skyler.
Next slide. Just more examples of good ones. I want to try to get this pattern in everybody's brain. If you can just see some of these attributes we're talking about, that relative balance, you know, that post at each corner on those legs. And you don't want them too straight, but by God, you won't find very many Highlands that are too straight. More often it's a little too angular. You want to see that level top line. It goes along with that level hip structure. We call that from the hooks to the pins. I think there's a slide coming up that demonstrates that a little bit better. Top left is just a calf. Bottom one there on the left is one in Australia. Top one again on the other side is a calf I raised, and the bottom one is absolutely gorgeous. Bottom right, he was a Scottish import out of Germany. And I don't want to tout the Scottish imports too hard either, folks. Or if you think everything Scottish is gold, it's not necessarily. It just came from there. They have good ones and bad ones, just like we do. But that one right there is a real good one. That's why I got a picture of him. Next slide. More of the same. That bottom one, you can see those dots. Maybe that's their hip. That left one in the front is called their hook bone, and the back one in the rear there is called the pin. And you want to see a real levelness to that. Goes kind of right in line with that top line, as you can see, and then shoots right straight down to make almost, upside down backwards L from that top line right straight down the rear leg. And you can see that calf's got some dimension to him. That mother's doing a good job raising him. He's fat like a little butterball turkey out on grass alone. Any questions on that?
Skyler, on the one up in the right hand, do you have any concern about the sheath area being longer or more, less rigid? Is that
not really? I don't know that I've seen one Highland bull, and only a picture of, to be honest, that I would have been concerned with a sheath. No, I would say not so much. There's going to be a little hair there, and I wish, again, Mark, I could zoom in and look a little closer. I mean, that thing literally is the size of my thumbnail. I'm trying to, the whole picture there.
No, thanks. That helps.
Yeah, I would say no. There's a bull, and I think a very useful bull that I do have some genetics off of, called Zeus of Swains. If you ever have seen that one or Google a picture of him, he had quite a loose sheath. And I've seen several offspring out of him, and not too concerned unless we're getting caught in a barbed wire fence or it's inhibiting breeding, or it's just too awful unsightly. I'm not too awful concerned.
Hey, Skyler, it's Mark.
Yeah.
Say, what do you think of the Australians who think that the pin should drop a bit? Makes for easier calving.
Oh, I think it's the complete, maybe the pin thing might be true. Yeah, I'll go with that. The pins might be true, but they also go with, they want a low tail set, which just makes the whole hind end look horrible, like a goat. And if you're going for easy calving, I guess what you would ideally have was a lower pin set and a higher tail set, because we're trying to open up the birth canal, right? Or you're wanting more of an oval shape there for that calf to be able to come out of, versus any kind of squashed, can you visualize that? I can kind of do it better with my hands, I guess. But yeah, so I'd say it's really bullshit on both ends, I guess.
Well, that clears it up.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched enough cattle walk when their hooks, when their pins are lower than their
they tend to be under themselves. Yeah.
They roll when they walk.
Correct. They don't have that streamline, just real peaceful, free and easy movement. They kind of look more like an accordion playing or something. Yeah. Correct. So you're right. So I'll stick with, I'd rather have a higher tail set than lower pins any day of the week.
Good to know.
Yeah, good discussion, you guys. Okay, now we're getting into shittier ones. This is another Scottish import. What does anybody notice about that? There's two things I pretty dislike about this one.
He's not overly deep.
No. Is he? Not very deep at all. Does he look real long?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Well, that's what, when they're not very deep, that's kind of what they look like. They look real long. It's kind of a balance thing. If he had a great big gut on him, like you ought to have, and carried that good top line just the same, he wouldn't look quite as long, right? It's more like a hot dog on toothpicks versus a propane tank on, a couple of telephone poles. And his back legs are a little crooked. Not too bad, but you can tell he's not like super sound stable on those things. You know, you feel like you could push on that rear end and he might wobble, you know.
How can you tell that his back legs are crooked just from looking at this picture?
There's some better demonstrations further on down the line here in the slideshow. This is a little more slight. But as you get in tune with, you know, what sickle hocked is, what crooked legs are, you know, you can see just a touch of it in them.
Okay. Oh.
So there we go. Good. Can anybody see crooked legs there? Mm-hmm. Does it look like a bent fish hook or?
Yep.
To anybody else? I mean, these are pretty exaggerated. They are. They absolutely are. But just to kind of hone your mind into, try to reflect back on some of those pictures we saw earlier in the slideshow. You know, they didn't look like that at all, right? They look like sound as a pound, real good. These guys look crippled, right?
Yeah, they look like back feet are underneath their bellies almost.
Correct. Yeah. And you can imagine that when they move too, it'd be more of kind of a shuffle than a nice gait. You know, and imagine having a field full of cows like that, or it's all about mobility then is what we're talking about with those legs. And it affects the feet structure as well. You know, if those feet aren't wearing at the right angles as they're setting them down, traveling across pastures, they don't wear down like they should. So they'll tend to grow those long toes, you know, and you'll run into problems that way. It's all, you know, all this stuff we're talking about is relevant as far as that goes. Longevity and production. So just something to look for. You'll see a lot of Highlands that definitely have just a touch more angle than they should. And a touch isn't necessarily bad either. It's not as bad as being too straight, but you won't find many as a general rule that are too straight. So it's just kind of something to hone in on. It's easy to spot once you get a little eye for it. And can be part of your selection criteria. What do these train wrecks look like to you?
Train wrecks.
Yeah.
Bad backs.
Yep.
Look at that behind the shoulder on both of those. Can you see how it looks like there's a tight rubber band behind them? That's what they call being pinched in the heart girth. And it's, you know, it's their chest. It's where their heart and their lungs are. So if you can imagine, you know, puffing your chest out versus being quite constricted there and trying to move about, you know, do any kind of physical anything, a little bit more difficult. You know, couple that with legs that are close together, those front legs. I wish I could do this in person, I guess, because it's super simple. If you put your arms out in front of you and put your hands real close together and pinch that chest area and try to breathe, you can feel your whole chest is tighter. Versus opening it up, spreading your arms out and breathing. It's much easier, right? And that's what it comes down to. It's just, you know, being able to breathe, having that heart girth room, you know, and traveling. That dun bull in particular is just absolute one of the worst ones I've ever seen. So, you know, don't think because you got some hair better than him that you got something that's worth anything.
You could also hooks and pins on that dun bull.
Yeah. Horrible. That hip structure, those hooks and pins, like Jacqueline said, he roaches up in that top right in the middle. And I'm sure the legs are screwed too. But just a couple of real horrible examples. Or, you know, the calf is not as horrible as the old man, but when they grow up, their flaws become more evident as well. So just something to keep an eye out for. The calf, on the other hand, he does, you know, both those bulls have a degree of masculinity to them. They are both bulls. Even the calf, you can tell, is bully, which is something we'll talk about a little bit further down the line too. It's important for a bull to look like a bull. You know, correlates to scrotal size, fertility, you know, vigor, a bull getting out there and getting those cows bred, having that right attitude. That's all super important. You want a bull to be a bull and a female to be a female from a mile away. So those two do have that much going for them. I can say that. Questions? Or next slide. Okay, what do I got here? A bunch more good ones. The top left is going to be the best out of the group, probably. He's been combed on a little bit, but when we talked about having a little too much extra leather up front, you know, not real clean, and those bulls, you know, we do want them to have a crest on the top of their neck. We want them to look masculine, but he's just got a little too much baggage there on that underside and that brisket. He's got a little substance to him, maybe some spring or rib and some decent bone. But that behind doesn't match either, right? Or as hairy as he is, I mean, we want to see a bubble butt on these things, just a little bit of beef there, right? Again, reflect back to those earlier photos if you can. The bottom left, he just looks like parts and pieces thrown together to me. I know he's looking at us in that photo, but boy, I don't believe that bull has a neck. Any which way you slice it, I guess. Short necked, you know, how's he even going to be able to get down and graze? Or it would seem uncomfortable. And again, you know, no behind, no length to speak of. Maybe a touch goofy on those legs, maybe not. Top right's just utter junk. Or yeah, and so is bottom right. You can kind of, I mean, they look like some kind of buffalo or something, just a hormonal imbalance, something just real bad. The top one, that calf, maybe malnourishment, that's going to play a little bit of a role too. You know, if they didn't have an opportunity as a calf or as a yearling there, when they do look their most gawkiest, to thrive, they're going to look the part, you know, they're going to look like they're hurting a little bit. Yeah, that bottom right is just something else.
Yeah.
Hey, Skyler, this is James Schultz. That bottom right, the shoulder angle on that, is that super straight? I'm not always sure what I'm looking at there.
I cannot zoom in.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
But probably, I mean, I don't know. He is a train wreck, that one. Yeah, he's got no neck either, right? Or that neck shoulder junction is real. He doesn't have a neck, does he?
No.
Yeah.
I suspect that bottom right, it's a really poor photograph also.
Sure.
Not necessarily a good bull, but also a really poor photograph. So it's hard to say what's going on.
And that goes a long way too for anybody buying bulls now or that doesn't know any better. Like, I don't know, good breeders, I feel like, take good photographs. And it's not something to knock on. You know, you could say, oh, that's just a good photo. Well, at least that breeder knows how to take a good photo, which means they know what a good one had ought to look like, which is probably then what they're trying to create, you know, in their breeding program. If somebody sent me that photo, you know, I'd have a hard time believing anything the person had to say, I guess. But, you know, absolutely, there's people out there too that have good ones and don't know what they got. We'll send you a crap picture of one, and you'll have to see several more to, you know, make a fair evaluation. Yeah.
Hey, this is Jim and Darla Clifton. I want to thank you, Skyler, Adam and Emily, and Adam and Elm Hollow. You've been very helpful getting us started, and we've only been at this thing for about a year. A question to you. Would you recommend, and I know it's something to cost, but to your point, like pictures, you know, can be distorted like this poor thing on the bottom right. But would you recommend going, if you're going to invest in a bull or invest in any cow, doesn't really matter, Highland, would you, if you can afford it, or if it's within your means, or if it's reasonable to do so, would you recommend like going and visiting those locations first? And
every time.
And
yeah, I mean, there's no way you could not say that. Yeah, or at the bare minimum, you want to see video, you want to see locomotion. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I would say that.
Okay.
I bought them based on, I'm trying to think. Well, I'm sure I have, based on pictures. And I bought them in, live in person and thought, well, I probably shouldn't have bought that one. But yeah, just period. The more you get to know an animal, the more you see them, I can come onto your farm and say, I don't really like that one or this or that. And, and just like a judge at a show, there's no judge at a show that can tell me ever that one's not a good one or that one's this or that. They are what they are on that particular day. That judge sees what they see. There's nobody that knows my cattle better than me. Yeah. So the more you know, I mean, all things cattle, the more you know, the better.
Second. Yeah. I mean, we've been fortunate. We went to go see Emily, Adam, and then, in person, and you were sent us videos. So it's all worked out well for us, we think. But yeah, thank you. That's all.
Yeah. What do we got? Okay. This one, I really like this little conglomeration. Just as far as seeing a good one from all angles. From a flat profile to kind of quartering two, and then look at that one where he's dead on at us. Does anyone notice anything different about that bull that you don't necessarily see in a lot of Highland bulls?
He is wide in the front.
Isn't he?
Wide set. Yep.
So talking about that heart girth area, does that look like a beef animal to you? Does that look like a stout one, with lots of room and capacity? Real three-dimensional? He's not going to get blown over in a hard wind, is he?
Mm-mm.
No. And whatever, that's one close to my heart as a test. He's I think he's 13 this year, and I'm going to put him on a few cows anyway. Yeah, look at that, guys. You don't see that kind of dimension all the time anyway. And you want to see it from all angles. You can see even from the side angles, you can kind of get a feel for that one's pretty round and pretty solid, right? And again, your yearling bulls that people are, onto right now, or they're not, they are at their gawkier stage, but you still want them to have a little bit of foundation, a little bit of potential you can see into growing into something like that.
You can see he's got a nice scrotum and stuff on him too. It's level, it's even, and
very bully, right? Or yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep, that one's good. All right, we're getting down to our classes. Here's some white ones. I thought we'll do a class of white ones just to confuse people, or whites. There's maybe a silver or two in there, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure. Okay, I'll pick them out. What's the best way to do this?
Bottom right is the good one.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Conformationally, he's sound, and structurally, he looks much better than the others.
I agree. What about
look at the set of his legs. Look at his he has a little bit of a high tail set, but that doesn't bother me at all.
No, looks real square, right? Or just levels them off. I like that. In all fairness, now I think this one right above him is significantly younger compared to the rest of the group.
He's very feminine in his neck and brisket. Maybe it's age.
Yeah. No, see, that's what I'm saying. I think I would attribute that a little bit to his age. They're growing by leaps and bounds, so comparing a 5-month-old to a 7-month or 8-month-old makes a difference at that stage in their life. In a year, they're all on the same playing field. But so Jacqueline, yes, I definitely agree. The bottom right there is your champion. I don't know how anyone could see it any different. And then I'm going to go for that one above him that I mentioned. You can kind of see that squareness. And he's got that style. He's got maybe a little bit of a little shape to his rib and maybe a little shape to that rear end, even though his legs are not, are not set up to really exude that in that photo. What about third place and why? Come on, somebody go for it.
Top left.
Yeah. And why doesn't he look like a good bull to you?
Looks like a heifer.
Because he looks like a heifer. Yeah. He looks
otherwise
correct
not
enough.
all that bad.
No, he's good enough in his lines. Absolutely. Yeah. And a good bull makes the best damn steer, right? Or there's nothing wrong with the way that one's made, except for he doesn't have the masculinity about him. Yeah. And then we're down to that bottom left, which it's just his back legs and the photo angle. He's being taken like, this is a tall guy standing on top of a little calf. But he's the only one really that I could say was, structurally not correct. Just given those back legs. And he may be the whitest and the prettiest. But I don't, have a use for that one. He's not going to mature into anything but what he is.
Pass those legs on to all his heifers, and then you got a herd that can't go.
Right.
How about the back legs on the top right? Do you see any curvature on those?
Maybe a tick, but I think more so it has to do with try to visualize his legs switched, those back legs switched. You can kind of do it if you stare at it, in more of a show pose, where that one closest to us was, further back, a little farther extended. And then that opposite one a little farther forward. I think you'd see a little pop to that ass. And his legs would look better. But he's got enough style and enough bloom to him that I'd easily put him in second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who is that?
My name's Tim Myron, Myron Farms up in Minnesota.
Hey, Tim.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? And you can call me out on anything too, or, it's like I said, there's not one person that, there is give and take. There's some classes, too, that are going to be, I could have flip-flopped that one pretty easily, so for sure. All right, look at them ones. This is a little more tricky, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to put the one in the top right as first.
Good choice, Jan.
Agreed.
Ooh. Top left is bottom of the pile.
There we go.
Agreed.
That middle pair is where it gets a little tougher, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I happen to like the one on the bottom right, if we're going for a second place.
Say why.
I think he shows more development if they're close in age.
I think they are.
And he seems to have he just seems to be a better put together bull with more development, heart girth, spring of rib, back end. He's not as through the brisket, but that's also a very masculine bull kind of thing.
If he's not too hairy, I think his legs are there too, a little more. little more
well,
mass
I think
to
he's
legs.
pretty hairy. I think that one's pretty hairy.
But he's got bone to him. Whereas the bottom left has pretty skinny legs.
Does anyone else disagree?
I do.
Who?
It's Jan. I like the bottom left more than the one on the right.
So do I. I mean, just because from a sloppiness standpoint, that bottom right looks a little sloppier to me in that front end, and cuts up maybe just a little higher in that flank. That flank is kind of that armpit area right before the back legs. And I can't say that he's got a bigger hind end. I think he's a little bit hairier.
That's what I was looking at. His backside
And a little bit more devoid. Yeah.
Yep.
We got to get the flippers out.
Yeah, no, I know. So hair is deceiving is the bottom of that when it comes to, you know, either the natural coat or being clipped, hair is deceiving. That's the point. So you got to try to look through that a little, you know, as best as you can. I think both of them have a touch angle to their back legs. You can kind of see. But yeah, and I kind of like the hip structure a little bit better on that bottom left one too. Which again, I think can be a hair deal. Covered up on the right one. You might not see it so much because he is hairier, but that bottom left looks just a little bit more streamlined and stylish to me. Yeah, versus a little bit more sloppy and really maybe not as much expression, I don't think, in that bottom right. So tough class, yeah. And you could, you know, flip flop those two on any given day, depending on what you're looking for. Yep, but that's how I would do it. Is that all we have for classes? I think it is, guys. Questions? There we go.
Can you talk about scrotal development and, you know, from birth on and what you're looking for there, Skyler, and what they should be like as you kind of walk through up to maybe weaning or yearling?
Yeah. Big ones, you know, the bigger the better is, you know, a big set of testicles. You'll absolutely find your more masculine bulls are going to have a bigger set versus, you know, some of those ones that we said, you know, they look fine, but they don't really look like a bull. I guarantee you look under their skirt there and they're not going to have a big set of testicles either. And it relates directly to fertility of the females that they sire. It's been scientifically, you know, correlated. Those bulls with a bigger set of testicles sire females that are more fertile. So super important, you know, you don't want to be running a bull that's, you know, for one thing, they're probably going to be a little hit and miss on the cows from time to time. And then they're going to sire offspring that, you know, may or may not, you know, conceive like they had ought to, you know, not regularly every year, or maybe not, you know, on time that first time. They're not going to reach the, you know, development at the stage in life that they had ought to be. They just don't, you know, do quite as well. You know, there's stuff you can Google too. Scrotal shape is a factor too, you know, in bulls being able to lower their testicles and raise them up according to temperature, you know, which keeps the sperm at the right temperature, which keeps them, you know, at peak fertility, whatever. If they can regulate that, you know, sperm temperature is an important deal too. You don't want them too flat-sided or, you know, straight-sided. You want them to be kind of shaped like a pear back there. That's all I can say to that.
This is Nancy Geller from Elm Harbor. As we determine which bulls to steer, do you have a scrotal size in circumference that we should be looking for at different stages?
Sorry for the background noise. No, I don't know what size it is. You can Google it though. It's all relevant to you know, Highland cattle, it's the same with conventional cattle. You know, at this point, whatever, I don't even always weigh the weanlings or whatever. You know, I know they're big enough when they're big enough, and I know their balls look fine when they're fine. You can look up the numbers if you're measuring them, and you should until you develop that a little bit. What is it, Pat? You can probably, or Jacqueline, either, I don't, who else? Somebody
30
probably.
centimeters by 12 months.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Isn't it 36 centimeters for a yearling minimum?
No. 34 centimeters at any age will pass a breeding soundness exam.
Okay.
Obviously, those 40 and 42 are really what you're looking for, but 34 will pass. And I think they need to reach that by 2 years of age.
I've flat, you know, pulled up on a bull one time. Me and Pat were looking. He looked like a dandy. And I said, I don't know. Does this, you know, do his balls look a little small to you? And, you know, we chatted about it a little bit and didn't think much of it. Whatever, blew it off. And sure enough, he was infertile, you know. I mean, it correlates that strongly, you know. So, you know, you might not, you know, think the measurements are that important, or you're the cute ones, or you want a done one or some shit, but it's important.
And make sure they have both testicles descended.
Correct. Yeah, there's another valid point. Yeah. And ACA does. I mean, I don't. It's a great idea to have, you know, a bull tested beforehand for, you know, having a semen evaluation, but ACA does. I mean, I pull this line all the time, and it's true as far as I know. Have a set of breeding standards. If you buy an animal, whether it's bull or heifer, and it does not breed, you know, that breeder should supply you with either a refund or then a similar animal in exchange.
I think 1 year, over a year old.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a good standard, you know, just be careful who you're buying from too. A lot of new people you hate to see get started out on the wrong foot, but they go cheap or they go cute or I don't know what. And I know the market is a whole different deal today than it was 2 years ago, or for damn sure 10 or 15 years ago. But, you know, shop wisely. You can't, a bull should never probably be your first purchase, you know. Buy some females and put a little homework into your bull. Any other general stuff like that? I mean, there's probably some new people on the call, or if it's any representative of, you know, there's no question too stupid, really. We've all been there.
Yeah.
I'm going to hang up if there's no more questions.
You did a good job.
You did awesome, Skyler. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
You guys are welcome. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you,
Thank
Skyler.
you. Thanks, Skyler.
Good job.
Have a good night, hon.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Skyler. Terry and Kay.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Terry.
Buddy.
Look forward to seeing you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.